It's a grand time of year, so it's time for a grand reserve from our good friend Ernesto Mendenez from La Ilusion and Las Brumas fame. My name is Steve Layton, and I travel the world finding amazing and delicious coffee for you to drink at home. Some make coffee difficult to understand and complicated, but here it's my job to make it easy and fun and tell you what's in my mug. So this week we've got a coffee from El Salvador, from Ernesto. It's actually not from a farm, it's his Grand Reserve Peaberry. Now we've worked with Ernesto in El Salvador for many, many years now. And if you've watched In My Mug, even occasionally you will have seen us talk about him a lot. And I talk about him quite lovingly as he owns one of my favourite all-time farms, which is La Ilusion. But Ernesto has other farms too. He has Alaska, he has Los Andes, he has Las Brumas, and they're great coffees, and we've been really lucky to enjoy them over the years. The farms are situated on the Santana volcano, and don't just get rave reviews from me. They're consistent competition winners in Cup of Excellence and in World Barista Championships. And each of Ernesto's farm has had some level of success in the Cup of Excellence competition, which I don't know of another coffee producer in the world that has that kind of consistency of placing in the top ranks. Ernesto really nails it when it comes to looking after his farms. As I said, they've not only been Cup of Excellence, have been used by 2 World Barista champions in their winning performances. And I've been lucky enough to be involved in both. The first was 2011, where La Ilusion was used by Alejandro Mendez, who was at Viva Espresso at the time. Alejandro was in Bogota and became the first barista from a coffee producing country to take home the title. That was followed up by a familiar face in 2017, Mr. Dale Harris, who's been on In My Mug a few times, who works here at Has Been, and he used Las Brumas in Seoul in South Korea. So there's a pedigree to these coffees and a pedigree to all of the farms. And Ernesto has great farms, but what are you drinking? Well, the answer is it's a mix. It's his Grand Reserve Peaberry that he's picked from each farm to find. And we haven't had this for a while, and I'm excited that we can kind of share it again. I think the last time was about 4 or 5 years ago. Each of the lots are separated out after processing, and at the dry mill, the Peaberries are sorted. And he cups them, and he's a Q-grade cupper and looks for the best lots. It's a blend of washed and natural from the farms, so that's kind of quite unusual too. And it's just a concept that Ernesto came up with, kind of master blending micro lots and separating, cupping them all and finding this unique and special lot. There's not so much of it. It will be around for a little while, but not too long. And I really wanted to share it with people on In My Mug because this is like a little post-Christmas treat for you all. So I hope you enjoy it. So this week we're going to do another cupping, and this is on the Peaberry. Now what I'm going to show you first of all is here. I've got a Peaberry and a normal bean, so you can see that it's rounded, it's a little smaller. So yeah, they do look different, and you can see here how different they do look when you get quite a few of them together. But let's taste it, because obviously that's what's important here. So the first flavour I get with this is like a maple syrup and a little bit of orange peel as well. But what really drives it is its sweetness. I want you to think sponge cake. So that kind of drying but sweet and moist kind of going on, along with that maple syrup. So piece of sponge cake covered in maple syrup with a little bit of orange peel on top. There you've got your coffee perfectly described. So there was a time where Peaberry coffee beans were considered to be inferior and quite often would be rejected as a defect. And in the main, this was due to the size, and I actually think they're really pretty, but lots of people think they don't really look like coffee beans. They don't look like the normal regular bean. And then there was a time where Peaberries became highly treasured and something that was very desirable. And then there's a current time where some normality hit the market, and now there are some good Peaberries and there are some bad. And that's widely accepted now as being, it's particularly in specialty. But exactly what is a Peaberry? Well, coffee cherries, the fruit of the coffee tree, have seeds inside them. And in each cherry, there are 2 seeds, normally, which are referred to as beans. A peaberry is nothing more than a bean without a partner. So, you know, a solo bean. Let's all feel a little sad for the peaberry that lives on its own and eats pot noodles. But peaberries occur in every single varietal and in every single growing region. And normally there's about 4 to 10% of the coffee cherries will have a single smaller fused bean. There are some varietals that have been bred that have more peaberries. And on a trip to Brazil, I came across one called a can, which produces 45% peaberry. So you can generate more peaberries if you want to. Peaberries typically develop at the ends of the branch, and nobody really knows why. But one theory is that the outermost blossom is more exposed to the wind and weather, which can mean that the flower loses its pistil, and you have 2 pistils that fire into the seeds being formed. There's also a theory that because peaberries are smaller, all the flavours are concentrated in that one seed. That may be true, but it may not be. And it can be at a disadvantage because it only produces 1 seed, and this may have a negativity in the cup. So there's pluses and minuses for it. But you know what? Some peaberries I've had have been amazing, others not so amazing, some just really grim. Kind of like normal coffee beans. Everything can be average, everything can be amazing. But there's one thing for sure, that they're different, and they can be very special. And I think it's also that it's just so different when you look at them and have them in your hand. You know, you kind of think, oh, this is definitely different to what I normally have. I remember one Kenyan coffee a few years ago that was truly amazing as a peaberry, and one of my all-time favourites. This year's offering, we've got this very special lot that we've already talked about, and it is the special reserve that Ernesto has cupped and picked out from all of his farms. So it's going to be something that's enjoyable and interesting. Roasting peaberries can take a little bit more skill, so if you're a home roaster, this is your time to listen in. Because of the size and shape and density, it does need a little bit more care, particularly during the development stage. After first crack, you need to go a little slower developing inside, because it's not going to roast the same as a typical bean. And so a slower developing roast I've found is best with these coffees. So let's go taste some. Okay, so let's dive in and taste the coffee. It's better than waking up and smelling it anyway, isn't it? So, this is the Peaberry Reserve, and similar to the cupping, you do get that maple syrup sweetness from it, but the orange peel is super pronounced. It's actually like highlighted in the brood. It's very sweet and very sweetness-driven coffee, and a great example of a Peaberry. Really is good. Well done, Ernesto, again for knocking it out the park. I hope you're enjoying it at home. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again next week. But until then, life is too short for bad coffee.